welcome to our deep dive. We're going exploring the world of African languages.
It's a fascinating topic.
It is. And you know me,
Yeah.
I love languages.
Right.
And just the sheer diversity we're talking about today is incredible. Over 2,000 languages
It's really remarkable.
in Africa alone.
It is.
So we've got a ton of articles, websites, even YouTube videos to dive into. So really what we want to try to get a handle on is, what are the major language families? How are they unique?
Right.
And what are the challenges they face?
Okay.
Because I think a lot of people,
Yeah.
when they think of African languages, think, oh, it's just like one thing.
Right.
But it's so diverse.
It is not a monolithic entity at all.
Right.
It's incredibly diverse. And, as you mentioned, the number of languages, over 2,000, it's really a testament to just how much linguistic diversity there is on the African continent.
And we've got all these different soundscapes.
Absolutely. Just imagine traveling across Africa. Not just the landscapes change, but the sounds you hear. From the melodic tones of the Niger-Congo languages to the distinctive clicks of the Khoisan. It's really like a symphony of human expression.
Yeah, the clicks. Tell me more about the clicks.
Well, those clicks are actually consonants.
I know. It's crazy.
In some African languages, and primarily in the Khoisan family. It's like those sounds we make to encourage a horse, but woven into everyday conversations.
That's wild.
It challenges our assumptions about what a language can sound like.
Yeah. And so I read that there are 4 main language families in Africa.
Is that right?
Afro-Asiatic, Nilo-Saharan, Niger-Congo, and then the Khoisan.
Right.
So are each of those like a branch
It's a great analogy.
or a massive language tree?
Yes. Each of those families represents a major branch with its own unique set of characteristics. And then within each of those branches, you have sub-branches and sub-sub-branches. So it gets really complex and really fascinating.
And like within the Khoisan languages?
Right.
I mean, they're not just one thing.
No, they are not. They're recognized as 3 distinct families themselves: the Kho, the Tu, and the Kanaksa families. And then there are also 2 isolates.
Wow.
Which are languages that haven't been definitively linked to any larger family. So there's still a lot that we're learning and discovering about the relationships between these languages.
And isn't it true that like the distribution of these families across the continent tells a story about migration?
It tells a story of migration, cultural exchange over millennia. So, for instance, if we look at the Kho family, which includes languages like Khoho, it seems like they migrated to southern Africa relatively recently, probably just before the Bantu expansion.
Okay.
And as languages move and interact, they influence each other, borrow words, they adapt to new environments. And so the distribution of these language families really reflects those historical processes.
It's amazing how much history is held within these languages.
It is. It's not just the history of the people, but also the history of the land, the history of their interactions with the environment.
And all the environmental knowledge, too.
Absolutely.
So another thing that I read about was tonal languages.
Yes.
Which is a big feature in...
particularly in Africa. And many African languages.
You're right. Tonal languages are widespread across Africa, particularly in the Niger-Congo family.
Right.
And in these languages, the pitch of a word can change its meaning entirely. It's almost like a musical code, adding another layer of complexity and nuance to communication.
And I read this example about the Yoruba language, where the word "o" can mean he, she, or it.
That's right, depending on the tone.
Depending on the tone.
It's incredible.
That is incredible.
And when you think about languages that have numerous consonants, like many in the Khoisan family, combine that with tonal variations, you have an incredibly rich and nuanced system of communication. It's really quite remarkable. I'm having trouble wrapping my brain around it.
It is. It takes a while to get your head around. But once you do, it opens up a whole new world of understanding how language works.
But let's go back to those clicks for a second.
Okay.
How do they actually work?
All right. So clicks are one of the most distinctive features of the Khoisan languages. And phonetically, they're much more complex than you might think. A click is produced by making 2 closures with your tongue. One at the front and one at the back. Then you release the front closure, which produces that popping sound. It's like a double articulation.
Wow.
And some Khoisan languages have an astounding variety of clicks.
Like the Juhoan language.
Right.
Which has something like 48
click consonants.
Still consonants.
It's a symphony of clicks.
Wow.
And it really highlights the incredible diversity of sounds that human languages can produce. But sadly, many of these languages, including some with these incredible click systems, are facing serious challenges today.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to talk about next.
Okay.
Because it is so sad to think that so many of these languages are in danger of disappearing.
It is. It's a real concern.
So what are some of the factors?
Well, I think one of the most significant factors
Yeah.
is the impact of colonization.
Right.
During the colonial period, European languages like English, French, and Portuguese were often imposed as the official languages,
Right.
while indigenous languages were suppressed or even banned.
And so it was seen as a way to advance
Exactly.
in society
Yeah.
to speak these European languages.
To speak the colonizer's language was often seen as the path to opportunity, to education, to advancement.
Right.
And so there was this sort of linguistic hierarchy that was created.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, the legacy of colonialism continues to have an impact. But it's important to remember that language loss isn't just a historical issue.
Yeah.
It's an ongoing process.
Because of things like globalization.
Globalization, urbanization, and the dominance of a few global languages.
Right.
All of these factors contribute to the decline of linguistic diversity worldwide.
So it's really a multifaceted
It is.
issue with historical roots.
Absolutely.
But also these contemporary...
Yeah, contemporary challenges that we need to address.
Yeah.
And it makes you realize just how fragile language and culture can be.
Yeah. Especially in a world that's changing so rapidly.
Exactly. And it underscores the urgency of efforts to document, revitalize, and celebrate the diversity of languages, not just in Africa, but around the world.
And the knowledge
that goes along with those languages.
When a language dies, it's not just a collection of words that disappears.
Right.
It's an entire worldview. It's a way of understanding the world and our place in it.
And, are there specific examples?
Oh, absolutely.
Of, knowledge or cultural understanding that is inextricably linked to these languages? So think about the intricate knowledge systems that many indigenous communities have developed about their environments, about medicinal plants, sustainable farming practices, traditional ecological knowledge.
Right.
All of these systems of knowledge are often embedded in their languages, in the ways that they categorize and name the world around them.
That's such a powerful thought.
It is.
That it's not just words that we're losing.
Right.
But it's entire ways of seeing and understanding the natural world.
It is. It changes our perception of reality.
Yeah. And so what are some specific examples of knowledge or cultural practices that are at risk because of language loss in Africa?
Well, one example is the traditional ecological knowledge of the San people in southern Africa. They're known for their deep understanding of the Kalahari Desert ecosystem. And their language, which is part of the Khoisan family, contains this rich vocabulary for describing different species of plants and animals, as well as their medicinal properties and ecological relationships. And this knowledge has been passed down orally for generations. And it's essential for their survival in this harsh and unpredictable environment.
Yeah, it's incredible.
It is.
And it makes you realize that it's not just this abstract concept.
It's not.
But it has tangible consequences.
It does.
For people's lives.
Absolutely.
And the relationship with the natural world.
Exactly. And it highlights the importance of language revitalization efforts, not just for preserving cultural heritage, but for safeguarding valuable knowledge that could be crucial for addressing contemporary challenges like climate change and biodiversity loss. It really is these languages are living libraries holding within them this wealth of knowledge that could be lost forever if they disappear.
It's like we're burning down the Library of Alexandria all over again. Except this time, it's happening on a global scale.
It really is.
With thousands of languages.
Yeah.
But I'm also sensing this feeling of hope emerging from these sources. It seems like there are incredible people and organizations fighting to revitalize these languages and bring them back from the brink.
There is a growing movement of language activists, educators, linguists working tirelessly to document, preserve, and revitalize endangered languages all across Africa.
Yeah.
And what's inspiring is it's not just academics or experts.
Right.
It's community members, elders, and young people stepping up to reclaim their linguistic heritage.
That's so amazing.
It is.
It feels like such a grassroots movement.
It is.
Driven by this deep sense of pride
Yeah.
and connection to language and culture.
Absolutely. It's about recognizing that language is not just a tool for communication.
Right.
It's an integral part of who we are. It shapes our identity, our worldview, our way of being in the world.
So what are some of the most inspiring examples
Oh, there are so many.
of these revitalization efforts happening in Africa?
One powerful example is the story of Katrina Esau,
Oh, yeah.
the last known fluent speaker of Nu,
Right.
a Khoisan language from South Africa.
Yeah.
Faced with the potential extinction of her language, she took it upon herself to create an alphabet
Wow.
and teaching materials,
Well,
single-handedly breathing new life into a language on the verge of vanishing.
I read about her. It is just amazing.
It's remarkable.
It's a testament to the power of one person to make a difference.
It really is.
But it was so sad to hear that the school that she established was vandalized.
It is a reminder of the challenges and the opposition that these revitalization efforts often face, but it also underscores the urgency and the importance of supporting them.
Absolutely.
And while Katrina Esau's story is remarkable, it's not an isolated case. There's the Khoisan transcription group in Namibia, working diligently to create educational materials
Right.
and advocate for the inclusion of Khoisan in school curricula.
Okay.
And in Botswana, the Naro Language Project has been instrumental in documenting and revitalizing the Naro language, creating dictionaries, translating texts, fostering a sense of pride among Naro speakers.
That's so cool. So they're finding ways to make these languages relevant for
Exactly.
younger generations.
It's about bridging the gap between tradition and modernity, finding ways to integrate these languages into the modern world, into education systems, into digital spaces, into everyday life.
And technology is a part of that, too.
Absolutely. Technology is playing an increasingly important role in these efforts.
It's really fascinating to see how digital tools and online platforms are being used.
Right. Think about online dictionaries,
Yeah.
language learning apps, social media groups dedicated to specific languages.
Right.
These tools are empowering communities to take control of their linguistic destinies and connect with a global audience.
And even like the Khoisan people were using notebooks
That's right.
to write down stories and
Yeah.
songs and traditional knowledge.
Exactly. Sometimes the simplest approaches can be the most effective.
Right. It's a reminder that you don't need fancy equipment.
No.
You don't need large sums of money
No.
to contribute.
Sometimes the most valuable resource is simply a commitment to preserving these cultural treasures, a willingness to listen to the stories of elders,
Right.
to document their knowledge, to learn their language, and to share it with others.
So why should someone who might not have
That's a great...
any connection to Africa or
Yeah.
these languages care about this?
Because language is the foundation of culture,
Right.
knowledge, and identity. When a language dies, we don't just lose words. We lose a piece of our shared human heritage.
It's like losing a thread in the tapestry of human experience.
It's like losing a color from the palette of human expression.
And each language represents such a unique way of seeing the
Yes.
world.
It offers a different perspective on life, on nature, on our place in the universe. And those perspectives are invaluable. They enrich our understanding of what it means to be human.
It would be like if everyone spoke just one language.
Imagine a world where everyone spoke only one language. We would lose that richness of perspective, that ability to see the world through different eyes.
Yeah. And it would be like looking at a painting with only one color.
Exactly.
It's the diversity of colors that creates a masterpiece.
And it's the diversity of languages that creates a vibrant and multifaceted world.
And so, on a more practical level,
Yeah,
language loss
it can have a profound impact.
can have a real impact on
Yeah.
communities and individuals.
It can limit access to education, to healthcare, even to justice.
Right.
When people are forced to abandon their native language
Right.
and adopt a dominant language, they often face barriers.
Right.
They face discrimination. It's a form of cultural dispossession that can
Yeah.
have lasting consequences for individuals, for communities, for entire societies.
And it brings up this
It does.
concept of language rights.
Absolutely. The right of every individual to speak their mother tongue, to learn in their mother tongue, and to see their language valued and respected.
And, we mentioned cultural survival earlier.
Yes.
I was really interested to learn about how they're advocating for the rights of Indigenous communities.
They're doing incredible work.
Yeah.
They recognize that language revitalization is not just about preserving the past,
Right.
but about creating a future where these languages can thrive.
Yeah.
They work with communities to develop language programs, create educational materials, and raise awareness about the importance of linguistic diversity.
It's so cool that they're using technology to support these efforts as well.
Absolutely. They're leveraging digital tools and online platforms to connect speakers, share resources, and create a sense of community around endangered languages.
And we talked about that even simple things like using notebooks
Yes.
can be a powerful tool.
Absolutely. It's a reminder that anyone can contribute to language revitalization, no matter their technical expertise or resources.
Yeah, it's like this global movement to reclaim our linguistic heritage.
It's about recognizing the value of diversity, not just of species, but of languages and cultures as well.
And language loss isn't just an African issue.
It's a global phenomenon.
What's happening all over?
Affecting indigenous communities and minority languages worldwide. From the Americas to Asia to Australia, countless languages are facing similar challenges. And the reasons for this decline are often complex and interconnected, involving historical injustices, social inequalities, and the dominance of a few global languages.
So it's more than just preserving words.
It's about addressing deeper issues of cultural identity, social justice, and environmental sustainability.
It all comes back to that.
It does. It's all interconnected.
And so I'm curious to hear how these language revitalization efforts are impacting communities and individuals on a more personal level.
Okay.
What are some of the stories that have emerged from these initiatives?
It's incredible to see languages that were on the verge of extinction come back to life.
Yeah, it's inspiring.
It is.
But how is this impacting the communities and individuals?
Well, there are so many stories of people rediscovering their ancestral languages and feeling this profound sense of belonging and cultural identity. Like in Namibia, there's a community of young Juhoan speakers who are learning their language through a mix of traditional methods and digital tools. They're using social media to connect with other speakers, share stories and songs, and even creating rap music in their language.
It's like they're blending tradition and modernity.
Exactly. They're taking their ancestral language and making it their own blending tradition with contemporary forms of expression.
That's so cool.
It really highlights the dynamism and adaptability of language.
It really does.
And it shows how language revitalization can be a source of creativity and empowerment, especially for young people who are often eager to connect with their heritage in meaningful ways. And it's not just the younger generation. There are also stories of elders who are seeing their languages come back to life and feeling a renewed sense of pride and purpose. It's like a cultural revival, a reawakening of something that was almost lost.
It's pretty amazing. So if we can revive these languages, how might that change how we see ourselves?
That's a great question. I think one of the most significant impacts is the potential to regain lost knowledge. Many indigenous languages contain a wealth of information about the natural world, traditional medicine, sustainable practices, cultural beliefs that have been passed down for generations. And as we face these global challenges like climate change and biodiversity loss, it's becoming increasingly clear that we need to draw upon the wisdom and knowledge of indigenous communities.
We talked about the Sand people earlier and their knowledge of the Kalahari.
Their deep understanding of that ecosystem is invaluable.
And it makes me think that we've kind of been ignoring this vast library of knowledge for centuries.
For too long.
And we're just starting to realize how important it is.
And not just the practical knowledge, but also the different ways of seeing the world, different ways of thinking and being. Each language represents a unique worldview, a different lens through which to perceive reality. For example, some indigenous languages have grammatical structures that emphasize the interconnectedness of all things, or that view time in a cyclical rather than a linear way.
It's so different.
It is. It challenges our Western assumptions about how language should work. And opens up this whole new realm of possibilities for understanding the world.
It's like we can see the world with new eyes.
Exactly. It's like learning to see with new eyes.
Wow. Well, this has been such an eye-opening deep dive.
It has.
We've explored the diversity of African languages. The challenges, the revitalization efforts, and the impact that all of this has.
It's been quite a journey.
On how we see the world.
It has.
So before we go, I want to leave our listeners with a thought.
Okay.
What if all languages thrived?
That's a powerful thought.
Not just the dominant ones.
Imagine a world where linguistic diversity was celebrated, where every language was valued as a treasure trove of knowledge, wisdom, and cultural expression. It would be a world richer in understanding, empathy, and creativity.
I love that. It's a world worth striving for.
It is.
And it starts with all of us
Yeah.
taking action, whether that's learning a new language, supporting revitalization efforts, or just spreading the word.
Absolutely. Every action, no matter how small, can make a difference.
Well, thank you for joining us
Thank you.
on this deep dive into the world of African languages. And we hope this has inspired you to learn more and protect these languages for generations to come.
It's been a pleasure.